Since 2017, the Italian Wine Podcast has exploded and expects to hit 6 million listens by the end of July 2023. We're celebrating this success by recognizing those who have shared the journey with us and giving them the opportunity to contribute to the ongoing success of the shows. By buying a paper copy of the Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0 or making a donation to help the ongoing running costs, members of the international Italian wine community will be given the chance to nominate future guests and even enter a prize draw to have lunch with Stevie Kim and Professor Attilio Scienza. To find out more, visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Chin chin!
Welcome to Masterclass US Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. This show has been designed to demystify the US market for Italian wineries through interviews with experts in sales and distribution, social media, communications, and so much more. We will quiz each of our esteemed guests at the end of each episode to solidify the lessons that we've learned. So sharpen your pencils, get out your notebooks, and join us each week to learn more about the US market. Hello, welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Joe Lange to the Italian Wine Podcast. In 2007, Joe joined the fifth generation in establishing LangeTwins family winery and vineyards, first serving as the consumer direct manager and later in 2015, shifting his role to become the director of international sales. LangeTwins is distributed internationally in 15 countries from South Korea to Denmark, and Joe is key to directing those export markets for LangeTwins. Welcome to the show, Joe. It's great to have you here.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into today's discussion focused on international trade shows, Joe, tell us a little bit more about LangeTwins and your family's history in Lodi and in California wine.
Yeah, for sure. So, as you might have been able to decipher from my last name, this is a family business. So LangeTwins is named after my dad and his identical twin brother. And they started a vineyard management company about 40 plus years ago, and continuing on in that tradition of farming from their father and kind of lineage from there. So it won't be lost on any, Italian wine grape growers or vintners that, this is a family owned and operated multi-generational company, although not 20 generations like some European old world, more in the California vein. So short history on us as we immigrated from Germany straight to Lodi. And that's where our family's been farming, something for the last more or less 150 years. And things really didn't start getting kind of ramped up in a serious way on the farming side and now the winemaking side until the twins, my dad and my uncle. And after building up a pretty good vineyard holding, we decided to get kind of crazy and start our own winery as well.
So they are actual twins. It's not just a name, right?
It's quite shocking. We get that question a lot, even when we've had in the past both twins, and at 73 years old, they don't look quite the same as they did when they were 10, but we'll have them both behind a table at a festival and somebody will walk up and see LangeTwins and say, "Are you guys related? You look a lot alike."
That's amazing.
So yeah, very much a family company, and they're still active in the business, but it's really our generation. Me being the youngest right now at 40, I'll be 41 years old. My sister, my brother, my two cousins are all very much involved with running the winery and the vineyard operation as we kind of push it forward for the next generation. It all for us boils down to cultivating a lasting impact together. And what are we doing with the vineyards, with the winery, with all the families that are connected to us through the product that we grow out there in the vineyards? How do we cultivate an impact for the future generations? And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to us a little bit about working with your family, because, in Italy, we have so many family-owned wineries as well, as you alluded to, and you work with multiple sides of the family, cousins, multiple family members, different generations. So just talk to us a little bit about the dynamics of your family's business and also how you eventually came to be in the position you hold with international sales.
Yeah, so we all grew up together on the farm, on the vineyard. And so everything was kind of one and the same. The two families grew up, no more than 500 yards from each other. or meters for the Italian audience. And so, our cousins, while they're pretty much half siblings because identical twins are genetically the same, combined with that and just the proximity and how close the two families were and are still today. It was, you only know the childhood you had, but looking back on it, that is really the glue that has kept us together through, tough times, through big decisions as we, progress this business from just a farm family to now winemaking family and now, international business family. And so, we definitely, those relationships were built and glued together, all back on the original river ranch is where we grew up. And that's, I think, going to be really key as we talk about multi-generational businesses for the following generation, which I have one daughter and she is one of 10 in the next generation. So, started with 5. I'm one of 5 in this generation. The next is 10. And the business is very different. The one that they will have the opportunity to choose to get involved with or not.
Very international, which is what we're going to talk about today. So on that note, in this episode, Joe, we're talking to you about how can wineries and wine companies maximize their presence at international trade shows like Vinitaly, Pro Wine, Vin Expo, and more. There are so many events happening right now. I was just in New York and I think I had 6 or 7 events in the span of 4 days. It was kind of insane. So, we know we're back in the full swing of events after COVID. So we want to talk to you about how do we maximize as wineries and wine companies our presence at these events. We know they're expensive to travel to and activate at. So how do we really make the most of these international trade shows? So our 3 key takeaways for today's masterclass and what we're really excited to learn from you about are, number 1, the best ways to prepare for an international trade show. Number 2, how do we make the most of the show during the event itself? And then number 3, what are the most effective ways to follow up post-event? So let's dive in. And to start, Joe, tell us a little bit about some of the international markets that you manage in your role at LangeTwins.
So yeah, and going back to your earlier question about how I got involved, I started out as consumer direct, sales and marketing, and then that led into some distributor, marketing activities in different states in the U.S., and then had the opportunity to jump into international, and that has led me to doing these big shows like Provine Düsseldorf or the Vin Expos of the world. So where we're at today for exporting for the last 7, 8, 9 years, it kind of blurs with COVID.
I get that, right?
We're selling in about 15 different countries. Of course, not every country needs to see you every few months, thankfully. But these international trade shows are just obviously for efficiency's sake. They're the place to be to do as much business as possible. And I think everybody that's listening, they understand that. So we have Asian markets, we have European markets. Canada's a big market for us as well, but it's really centered for us because Canada is so close. Really thinking about it in kind of 2 different sections. How do I cover my Asia buyers? How do I cover my European buyers?
So in terms of those 2 key markets, what are some of the events that you're looking at in order to reach as many buyers as possible in the most effective way?
So Provine for us, I'm speaking of Düsseldorf, that is a key, probably our top event. If we only could do one, that would be it, just because it's got such a critical mass of suppliers and presenting wineries that, I do see a handful of our Asian importers come to that. The other side, I was just in Vin Expo Asia, which was held in Singapore this year, just a few weeks back, maybe a month now. I'm still getting over my jet lag from 15-hour time difference. You saw a lot more of that region buyers, but it's just the size of it is just a fraction of Provine Düsseldorf. I always remark to the other wineries here, the grape growers here, if ever you think you are a unique brand or a unique farm, you have a unique story, go to Provine, because you will just be amazed about how many different wineries are out there, how many family stores are out there, and just what the competitive landscape looks like for you.
Right. Yeah, I imagine it gives you a really valuable perspective being at those international shows, right? To see the landscape and what else is out there and how your own family's company can truly stand out and be unique. Um, but speaking of jet lag for a second, tell us a little bit more about some of your travel tips. You travel quite a bit, and so do so many of our listeners. I know we're all trying to be better, more healthy travelers. So what are some hacks you've picked up over the years?
Yeah, for me, it's all about how do I be as efficient as I can with time, and that sometimes goes completely against healthy traveling. But the change for me, just personally, and I think any export director it can relate to this. Um, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and so now it's all about how do I plan my flight where I can miss traffic to the airport, because flying in and out of San Francisco for me here in California is you got to be pretty
Yep,
strategic with your
definitely.
traffic times, like New York as well, I
Oh,
imagine.
yes.
And but then how do I not miss her wake up time, her nap time, or putting her to bed, so how can I maximize that time?
Hmm.
But it's efficiency for me. So I one of my little obsessions is I carry on only. Shout out to Tortuga Backpacks, because I can do 3 weeks business uh, trip and not look like a slob uh, out of a backpack, and be as efficient as I can. I absolutely despise checking bags and waiting at the baggage carousel, or having the risk of losing bags. And then, I mean, I wouldn't call them hacks, but for me, it's just, I do all my travel planning. I've found that working with the, travel agent, or working with, someone within the office to do that actually just creates more work. That might be a little character flaw in me, but I really do like the travel planning aspect of it,
Okay.
and, use that to my advantage. And so I don't have to study where I'm going and what I'm doing that day, because I've got it in my
Right,
head.
because you booked it yourself. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So it's really just about how do I be self-sufficient, and really be able to move about the world in a super efficient. And for us, who are not selling, $250 bottles of wine, we have to be really mindful of the budget too. So, and being a family member, not an export director that's got, a cushy expense report and flying, first class. Yeah, that's not the jam around here. Any money I spend out of my out of my pocket comes out of my other pocket. So as an owner of the company, you got to be really mindful of that as well. But the other thing is, I can't imagine, and like I mentioned, I'm 41 years old. I can't imagine doing this job without the just absolute proliferation of apps and how useful they are. Whether it's, of course, communication apps like WhatsApp and Line and WeChat and all that, but also, the ability to land somewhere and grab an Uber pretty much or a Lyft, right? Or a Grab in Vietnam and in Asia and stuff, and navigate by Google Maps, or, Naver in Korea. I mean, that amount of information you have in your hand is just absolutely insane. And that really facilitates doing this job. Or really anybody can do this job.
Yeah,
But
no, that makes a huge difference. I think about that a lot, and back to the days of printing out MapQuest directions, right? And how hard that would make anyone's job who travels like you in today's day and age. So very, very good reminder. We're grateful for those apps for sure.
and actually, and one more to add to that is Google Translate. I mean, I have used Google Translate um, a, in so many interesting ways, including just recently at Mexican customs, trying to get wine into that market to use for samples. I'll tell you the result of that offline, but yeah, it was a lot of Google Translate. Even though I do know some Spanish, it got pretty complicated pretty quickly.
Yeah, when you get into import laws and wine shipping, I'd imagine that it's hard to come up with the translations for those things on basic Spanish. So I'll look forward to hearing the outcome at another time.
Italian Wine Podcast, part of the Mama Jumbo Shrimp family.
So tell us a little bit more about, you mentioned Pro Wine, you mentioned Vinexpo. How do you prepare for these trade shows? What do you do before you go? How far in advance are you planning? How many contacts are you reaching out to? Talk to us a little bit about your process for preparing for these shows.
Yeah, so let's just take Provine. I mean, that comes in March. I'm right now I'm probably a little bit behind the ball because I haven't booked, hotels and things like that. Many times in years past, I'll actually book my hotel as I'm flying home from Provine for the following year, just because it's that big of a show. I mean, somewhere around 50,000 people plus each day come into that city. So that's one thing. You definitely don't want to be paying the premium for finding that hotel room last minute.
No last minute
Yeah,
reservations.
or
Yeah.
you better have some good friends that you can kind of crash in their room, which
Mm-hmm.
is not recommended. But really, for me, that where I've had the most successful Provine is doing all the groundwork, all the foundational work of meeting or setting meetings up with importers. And so it's a lot of matchmaking, and that is facilitated by the California Wine Export Program that we're a part of. So I'd
Okay.
encourage any winemakers from any region, if they have that export program or trade director in their region, to use them as much as they can, because that's where I've had my best shows, is where I can really cram a lot of meetings in with already warmed up and interested importers. And so we can taste the wines, and that's where the rubber meets the road. It's not my slick sales pitch. I kind of have the anti-slick sales pitch, is let's taste and then let's chat, because that's the foundation. The wine's got to be good, right? The story can't sell the second bottle of wine. The wine's got to be great. And so how do I get as many glasses filled as I can during that show? And groups like the Expo program, who can really facilitate, okay, I have 2 importers in Poland that are interested in adding California wines between these price points. Bam, I know I can have that meeting because I know what my ex-seller price point is. I know it by the bottle, because not everybody works in 12s, right? Like they do in the States. So many of them work in 6s. Convert all your units, right? So have all that work done so that you're not going out there only quoting a 12-pack case price, talking about acres, or gallons, or, all these things that present challenges to your foreign buyers. So put things in their language as much as you can.
Do your translations ahead of time so you're not scrambling, to do those conversions during a conversation.
Exactly. So that's the pre-work is really makes, and being prepared, I guess, is what it comes down to, is really what makes a successful show.
Yeah, and so engaging with your export groups, getting those meetings beforehand set up where possible, knowing which companies have the right fit for your brand, and something that I think a lot of people might forget, do your conversions as well for your quantities. I think that's a really important one. So when you're at the show itself, I mean, you talked about getting as much juice into glasses as possible, getting in front of as many people that are applicable for your business as you can. But what are some other ways that you make the most of the trade show during the days itself?
I mean, during the days itself, I've done a Provine, which is a very busy show. Just after COVID, when they in 2022, so last year, when they held it in May, I actually went solo. Usually I would have had my wife with me, but we had a daughter at home, and my wife also works in the business. So it was very useful to have 2 people there that when I was in meetings, she was up at the booth, could pour wines for any customers walking by, but also it wasn't just hiring pouring staff that knew nothing about the wines, and actually had, negative sales results. So she could facilitate that short tasting, see if it's worth having the follow-up conversation, and set a meeting for later that day or the following day if possible. When I went solo, one of the things I was like, okay, how am I going to capture these people walking by or getting sent over from the California wine team? I'm going to be there solo, and, bad form to just get up from your meeting to go handle, to go answer the phone, so to speak, which happens so often, which always makes me really laugh. So what I did was I just created a little sign that I'd put out on my stand with a QR code on it that just went to my contact info, and just a short note that said, sorry, I'm in a meeting. Please shoot me a note on WhatsApp or pretty much your preferred method of communication, and let's set up a meeting. And so at least you're giving them a way, not just shooing them away, but giving them a way to reach out immediately.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Simple, but definitely it seems like it was effective. Did that work for you this year?
Yeah, it did. It was effective in that year because I was solo, and I did get a few people that saw I was in a meeting and shot me a note. We were able to hook up. Of course, that show was a bit smaller because it was just after COVID, and you had to test to get back into certain countries, so the attendance was down. Luckily, this year I had my sister, who is the president of the winery, so she kind of knows the wines back and forth as well. So so it was a really great tag team of when I had meetings, she was kind of playing my support, and vice versa when she had meetings. So that was great. Now, you're not always going to be able to get your president and your export director to man multiple 3-day shows around the world, but one thing I'd absolutely advise is, if you're going to invest in these big shows, don't just have someone there to slosh your wine around. Have somebody there that has some story to tell. They can be taught the export the export price and things like that. But even if it's someone from the vineyard team, they can put their own twist on that story. And so when they're talking about that Sauvignon Blanc, they may not talk about the winemaking, but may have a more impactful story to share about that vineyard, which could, really put the hook into a buyer.
Absolutely. So make sure you're sending someone to these shows that's really knowledgeable about the brand and the wines, and can add real value to whoever they're pouring for.
Yeah.
Okay. Some really useful tips for what to do during the show. And also just in the travel front, I mean, how do you keep your energy up? I find that, these events, especially after COVID, I think our social staminas have all lowered slightly. How do you just keep your energy levels up to get through those long days?
Yeah. I mean, definitely if you're for Provine, you're there, 9+ hours. I mean, when you factor in trying to get to and from and all that, I mean, they're very long days. And then, not that you have to go out and drink a bunch of German beers afterwards, but that's typically what everyone does. Even if you go out to have dinner, you're really not making it back to your place until 11 o'clock or so, because of just how much time it takes to get out of the facility. And so a lot of caffeine. I got to say, a lot of caffeine. I'm a big coffee lover. So yeah, that's something big for me. But also, I think it helps to, at least for me, to sometimes, if you're going to be in that space and in that headspace, really, of just being on for 9 hours a day plus, to not book the hotel that everyone else is staying at. So you're constantly running into people that you're having to have those conversations with, to give you your own space to go back and just have a quiet dinner, if that's what you need, or a quiet drink that's not wine, if that's what you need, and then starting your day, in that same, kind of quiet headspace. Now, I say that, but it's very hard to do sometimes, especially when you got a family back home that you're trying to connect with in different time zones. And you may only have, 20 minutes while your daughter's getting ready to go to school that you can see her face. So, I think you try to plan for the best case scenario and just be prepared for it not to come together in the best way.
So post event, back home, have beaten maybe the jet lag a little bit. What's your plan for follow up? How do you follow up with all those contacts that you made? How do you gain traction with the connections that you made at the show?
It's a tough thing to do after you've spent a day traveling, 3 days at a show. You're exhausted, but I do try to spend my flight home, no matter where it's from and at whatever hour it is, that I've got either my stack of cards or I've got my notes, either notebook or putting notes into your digital notebook on your phone, and try to send really relevant, specific emails so that you're reminding buyers or anybody you have met there where they met you, how to remember you, and any really specific points. So I'm trying to make it as relevant as I can to get a response and to keep that conversation kind of bubbling. It's really easy to just fly home, get back into family life, and 4 days later, check your inbox and then start sending out your email follow up, or on WhatsApp. Sometimes it's actually more common now, but it's I find it's a lot more effective if you get on it right away.
So follow up as soon as possible. Don't wait to giving people those few extra days after a show, but do the follow up while you and the conversation are top of mind.
Yeah, memories are really short nowadays, and attention spans are really short, right? So
they definitely are.
Being able to leverage that time you just spent, I think, is really important to do. And with a quick follow up, it doesn't have to be long winded. Just quick follow up, quick reminder. Particularly which wines they liked, and some follow up questions about keeping the thing going. The other thing I say, and maybe this is because it's my family business, but I always go back to that, people buy from people. It's that connection. It's that when everyone says relationships, but I share a fair amount of our family story through the brand, but also just personal life, because if you're connecting with somebody that's in a corporate buyer for a large retail chain in Germany, they don't have that same luxury, and I think sometimes we get away from that sharing of just personal stories and what's going on, and really getting invested in each other's lives, so to speak. I mean, it's a professional relationship, but at the same time, we're all humans, we're all people, and so to be able to converse like that, and I think when it comes down to it, people like buying things from people they like.
Yep, definitely. That's a really, really good reminder for all our listeners. Okay, so let's do our rapid fire quiz. We're wrapping up, and you shared so many good tips, Joe, and I want to make sure we recap them all for our listeners today. So if you can do your best to answer these questions in one sentence or less. Question number 1, what are some of the best ways to prepare for an international trade show?
I'd say do your pre-work, networking, meeting requests.
Okay. Question number 2, what are your tips for making the most of the show during the festival days itself?
Having very knowledgeable people presenting your brands if you can't be there yourself.
Okay, fantastic. And finally, what are some of the most effective ways to follow up post-event?
Do it quickly and on a human level.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us today on the Italian Wine Podcast. I learned a lot, and definitely some tips that I'll be using, I know, in future events, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. How can our listeners connect with you and LangeTwins?
Well, scan that QR code, of course. No, shoot me. You can find LangeTwins on all the social channels, just at LangeTwins, and then happy to connect with anybody around the world. Email is just Joe at LangeTwins.com. One of the things I failed to mention is at these shows you're able to connect with so many different wine professionals from around the world, and much of our business is very collaborative and friendly and social, and so that's really one of the joys of this business, is being able to connect with people like me just in Italy or in France or in Spain or Argentina or Chile. So
it really is.
It's really a thrill.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a good reminder for all of us on a Monday morning as we dive into our work weeks. So thank you again, Joe, for being here, for having this conversation with me today. It was great to have you on the Italian Wine Podcast.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me today. Stay tuned each week for new episodes of Masterclass US Wine Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. And remember, if you enjoyed today's show, hit the like and follow buttons wherever you get your podcasts.